Hello Flosstube Friends, thank you so much for joining me for another Stitch With Me video. My name is Audrey Marine. This is a channel all about cross stitch, and today I'm going to be covering the herringbone stitch. To demonstrate this stitch, I have pulled out my WIP of Amelia Brown 1885. This is a chart that was produced by Hands Across the Sea Samplers a few years ago for a workshop that was held at Hobby House. I did not attend that workshop, but I have a very generous group of friends, and one of them shared this chart with me. It has been very fun to work on. You can see that I have a nice start. I have shown this in a previous Flosstube episode, but if you are new to my channel, you may not be familiar with it. As I say, it's been fun, and part of the reason is that it's just a couple of colors. It does actually have 3 colors, but the third color, a dusty brown, is just used to stitch the girl's name. So the rest of the sampler is completely done in this green and red color. If you are not familiar with the 100 Threes, this is a spooled silk produced by Overa Soie. I will link hoopandframe.com below. You can shop their products there. But the called for colors are 647. This is a very bright limey green, and then 109 is the deeper wine red used in this chart. In the chart, the herringbone is actually done in this green color. I don't know how easy it will be for you guys to view that on screen, but if you're watching on a big TV, hopefully it will be clear. And then if you are watching on anything other than a TV, you should actually be able to zoom in just as you do with photographs. So you should be able to pinch and zoom so you can see up close the stitches that I am making. But conveniently included with this booklet was this little card showing the herringbone stitch. So you can see the herringbone that is charted in this sampler is actually done over 4 linen threads. So a normal cross stitch over 2 would occupy this area, this, and this. Those would be the 4 corners of one cross stitch over 2. So you can see that it occupies 4 times the area here. But we're going to go in this direction. We're going to start up here and move downward, and then we'll come back 2 linen threads on the back, move up, and while we're moving up just as high as this first stitch, but we're not moving at the same angle because we're not going to be moving over 4 linen threads. We're just going to be moving to the right 2. And then back 2 underneath, and then forward again over 4, both horizontally and vertically. So, and then this here is showing you what you would need to do to end it naturally. But hopefully it will make sense as we get going. I'm going to cut myself a nice long length of thread here with my 647 and get my needle threaded. Now, normally when I start a thread, I either start with a pin stitch or leave a tail hanging on the front, and that tail on the back side gets secured. But because we're doing something a little bit differently, I'm actually going to secure my thread under stitches that I have already laid. So let me determine where I'm supposed to start. I think, nope, it is right here. That is where I'm going to start. So I'm going to secure my stitches, or secure my tail, excuse me, on the back there. Now I have my fabric here. This is a 46 count. I have this in a Hardwick Manor hoop, and it is held in place in my Pataki stand, my Velcro Pataki stand. If you have any questions or are curious about any of the needlework tools that I use, I will link a video that I made all about that. And in the description of that video, all about needlework tools, I have links and information on all the products shown. All right, so I feel that that's pretty secure, good enough to get going. And it looks like I've put my needle in the correct spot. Okay, so we are going to move over to the right and down the equivalent of 2 cross stitches to the right as well as 2 cross stitches down. Okay, so we put in our first leg. Now the herringbone stitch can be done, there can be variations to it. Just because it is charted in these increments in this chart doesn't mean that this is always how you would put in a herringbone stitch. You can make the legs longer, you can make the angles different, and you can space things out more. You can do all sorts of things. But for this particular chart, for Amelia Brown, this is how we're going to do it. So I have put my first leg in. I'm going to say 2 stitches to the right and 2 stitches down because I'm working on linen, so that works for me. That's what works for me in my head, explaining it to myself. And then I went back 1 stitch. Now I'm going to go up 2, but over 1. Now that is not 1 linen thread, that is the equivalent of 1 cross stitch, the width of 1 cross stitch, if that makes sense. So this is what we have put in so far. Let me show you. So I have put in this first leg and then come back 1. You see it's 2 linen threads, but that's the space of 1 regular cross stitch. So that's how I would say it to myself. I would say I'm going over and down 2 and back 1. And then from there, I go over 1, but up 2. That's how I would say that. But we all have different ways that we talk to ourselves. So this may not be the same way that you would explain it to yourself, but this is what is working for me. All right. Now we have basically done 1 herringbone stitch because the next leg that I lay is going to be the second of its kind, because from here where I have this thread, I'm going to go over 2 and down 2. Okay, and then we're going to go back 1. And basically, we're just going to continue in that way. Now, this will make for rather close herringbone stitches. It's going to be not clearly defined. If I use this same thin thread on, say, a 40 count, there would be more spaces between the stitch, not more spaces, there would be more space between the stitches, and so therefore it may be easier to see. Also, because I'm using this lime green color, it all kind of blends together, I think. If I were using a darker color or the red, perhaps it would be easier to differentiate the different legs. I hope I'm explaining this well, because it seems to me to be coming out a jumbled mess. Okay, so I have laid 3 full herringbone stitches, 3 full pattern repetitions, I guess you would say, because coming out the top here, this is basically how we started. We're going over 2 and down 2, and we're going back 1, and then we're going up 2 and over 1. Oops, I didn't do that. Up 2 and over 1, that's where it would be. Now, I will show you, as an example, how it would look different if we were to extend our stitches. So that leg that I just laid was, again, over 2 and down 2. But what if, instead of going up 2 and over 1, we went up 2 and over 2? And then back 1, and then over 2 and down 2, and back 1. Really, the only thing that you need to do in order to continue moving forward is to make sure that you are moving forward more than you're moving backward. That's the important thing to remember. Okay, so now look at the difference there in how this herringbone stitch looks, just by modifying it slightly. You can see there is more space between these legs because I have changed the angle of one of the top legs. But again, you know, you can change this in any number of ways. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this out because it's actually not how it is charted, but you can see the difference that an angle makes, right? And you can do this even over a greater area to create even more, you know, even larger herringbone stitches. This is often something that you will see people use on edges of pillow finishes, but it does add dimension. It does work nicely on a stitched piece as well, whether it's a sampler or a seasonal small, an ornament. You know, you can use this kind of stitch, any number of specialty stitches, to give a piece interest and added dimension that it wouldn't otherwise have if it were done completely in cross stitch over 2. Now I love cross stitch over 2, but I also love specialty stitches and what it can add, what they can add to a piece. Yeah, but pretty easy once you get started on this. As I said, the most important thing to remember is that you are moving forward more than you are moving backward. So with each of these pairs of top legs, and by top I mean legs that sit on the front of the fabric, I am moving forward three stitches, and with the bottom legs I'm moving backward 2 stitches. And I'll explain what I mean here. So coming up at the top here, basically starting in the same way that we started at the very beginning, and moving forward, I'm going to go forward 2, oops, that was interesting. I'm going to move forward 2 stitches with that leg and move forward 1 stitch with this leg. Oh my goodness. We want to knot a lot today, don't we? Also, my needle came out. Okay, this is no big deal. You get knots every once in a while. Let's give them a little tug there. It's a loop knot, it's a slip knot. So if you put your needle in the loop and give it a little tug, that's usually enough to pop it out. Sometimes they're really stubborn, but very rarely do I have to actually, you know, cut the whole thing. Yes. So the legs that sit on top of the fabric, each pair of those will move you forward 3 stitches, and the pair of legs on the back of the fabric will move you backward 2 stitches. So you are consistently moving forward, and that's what you want. This does look really neat. I hope you can see it, but it may be hard because it's so small. If you have a border or a row of cross stitches, you know, a double row of cross stitches, you can always substitute it with this, just to change things up. But very easy once you get going. Very simple, rhythmic. I mean, this is at least as easy as cross stitching. Look at that, I got another knot. Boy, it is all about the knots today. I'm gonna blame the humidity. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, we got it out. I say we, you're not here taking this knot out. I got it out. Sometimes I wish somebody would take my knots out for me. All right, but that's it. Easy peasy. I'll show you that diagram again. You can take a screenshot of this. There are also tons of other tutorials online if you are struggling with this herringbone stitch, but it's not complicated. Just slow down, give yourself some grace, have patience, and I think you'll be able to knock it out. If you have any other questions, please feel free to leave those in the comment section below. You can also find me on Instagram at @StitchStitchBead, or send me an email if you prefer to get a hold of me that way. I will leave my email address below. I have other tutorial videos on this channel. Please check those out if you're interested. And then of course I have tons of regular Flosstube videos, so you can look for those at regular intervals throughout the year. But thank you so much for watching, and very good luck with your herringbone stitches, and happy stitching.